Hello, my name is Dr. Adam Chalmers. I'm an associate professor at the University of Edinburgh and one of the co-academic leads, along with Dr. Robin Klingler-Vidra, of Carrots and Sticks. It's a real shame that I couldn't be with you in person today, but I'm nevertheless very excited to share some insights from the recently launched Carrots and Sticks report, as well as from some related research that I've been doing into sustainable finance. And I think this is particularly germane for this panel. Specifically, my short talk will drill down into the Carrots and Sticks database, focusing on three questions related to sustainable finance regulation and policy. Number one, who's writing this policy? Number two, which subsectors of finance are most targeted in these policies? And then number three, what is the impact of sustainable finance policy on companies? Now, before I start to answer those questions, I'd like to say a few words about Carrots and Sticks. Carrots and Sticks is the world's largest and most comprehensive database on ESG and sustainability policies worldwide. It's comprised of 2,463 policies from 132 different countries, 76 different international organizations and regional organizations, available in 38 different languages and ranging from 1897 to the present day. It's also freely available and accessible online. So the first question, as I mentioned earlier, is this: who's writing these policies? Looking at the entire Carrots and Sticks database, it's clear that governments are leading the charge. So this includes governmental ministries and agencies, various authorities, and executives. A sizable proportion of the policies in the database were also written by international organizations. This would include Global Reporting Initiative, OECD, World Bank, for instance, as well as many United Nations bodies, like the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. Importantly, stock exchanges and financial regulators, especially when taken together, make up about 17% of the entire database. Since Carrots and Sticks is a database of ESG and sustainability policies, this already gives us some idea of the focus on sustainable finance policies in the database. But I can speak in more precise terms. Using new methods in natural language processing, so-called NLP, where we treat the texts of the policies in this database as data, we can isolate policies that focus on sustainable finance specifically. And even more precisely, we can say something nuanced about our second question, which is which specific subsectors of finance are targeted in those policies. So here we can see a bit of an answer to this second question. Now, by subsectors of finance, I mean four things: banking activities, fund management and insurance, as well as FMI, financial market infrastructure, so the category that includes things like security and commodity exchange. This figure that you're seeing here shows the relative proportion of each subsector that's targeted and how this changes over time, starting in 2001 and ending in 2021. Clearly, activities related to banking are the single most targeted activity in all of our ESG and sustainability policies. Of all sustainable finance related policies that were written in 2012, to take an example, more than 90% targeted banking related activities. Well, the prominence of banks within sustainable finance policy is perhaps unsurprising. The scale of this focus is surprising. According to the Financial Stability Board, in 2021, banks accounted for 38% of global financial assets. At the same time, however, around 3/4 of the policies identified in our data set reference banks as in some capacity related to sustainable finance. Now, this brings us to the third question, and that's, well, what's the impact of sustainable finance policy on companies operating in finance? In the Carrots and Sticks report and database, we approached this question in terms of assessing the extent to which ESG and sustainability policies compel or mandate, by force of law, companies to engage in some activity or behavior. Or not, of course, meaning that policies are voluntary and serve as guidelines or best practice. Now, a novel feature of carrots and sticks is that each policy in the database is measured in terms of something called restrictiveness. And that means the extent to which a policy emphasizes the use of language that either compels companies to or deters them from engaging in sustainable activities. Now, we find across all policies that restrictiveness is rather low. In fact, the majority of policies are in the low category. Few policies are coded as either high or very high in terms of restrictiveness, and you can see that on this slide here. Now, a key finding of our report is that most ESG and sustainability policies lack teeth. And this is not really a trend that we're seeing a positive change in over time. Now, we can drill down once again into the carrots and sticks data and look at similar trends, but for policies that target companies operating in finance. Again, banking, fund management, FMI, and insurance. This figure looks at average restrictiveness across sustainable finance policy organized by issuing actors, so the government, stock exchange, financial regulator, regional organization, and international organization. The arrows show change over the past 20 years. And I've also added a reference line showing how Basel III would score on restrictiveness to give you further context. All right, so what are we seeing? I think we're seeing two major and really interesting trends here. First is that governments still issue the most restrictive policies on average, but this trend is very much in reverse gear. At the same time, we see the rise of regional organizations and stock exchanges. Both show a significant increase in restrictiveness over time, +9 and +5, as you can see on this figure. Clearly, a key actor here for regional organizations is the European Union, where policies like the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, so the so-called SFDR, the EU Taxonomy, and the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD, amongst a few others, score very high in terms of restrictiveness or the extent to which these policies compel or mandate specific sustainability activities by companies. Sustainable finance regulation and policy in the EU and globally is expected to become more comprehensive, ambitious, and harmonized in the coming years as governments seek to accelerate the transition to a sustainable economy. What does this mean? Well, this means that companies operating in finance will need to focus on developing and offering sustainable financial products and services, as well as on aligning their operations and investments with sustainability goals. Companies that fail to do so may face regulatory scrutiny or lost market share. Now that brings me to the end of my presentation. I'd like to thank you all very much for your time and attention.